Okay, not one, but good morning, everyone. We are super excited to connect with you today for yet another Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp series. We are on number 4. I'm so grateful and excited to connect with you today. Today's conversation, you are in for another treat. We are here for round 2 of project management. And I just want to take a second before we dive all the way in to just tell you a little bit about the Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp if you are new to us. We know that COVID-19 has affected communities across the globe. And so I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who I'm going to introduce you to momentarily. And we were talking and we said, how can we bring some type of professional development experience to the community, the business community, the entrepreneur community, all of these founders who are working to make significant impact in the lives of those they're called to serve. And we thought, what better way to, since we can't connect out in the world because the world's completely shut down, we can still connect together virtually. What does it look like to bring together a training experience? And so we decided to put together 12 bi-weekly Comerica Business Sense workshops designed for founders, professional service providers, as well as corporate leaders to remain proactive in increasing their knowledge and developing their skills as we navigate this post-COVID world together. And so for those of you who are new to me, I am your host, A. Margot Blair, partnership strategist and founder of Discover Her Worldwide Incorporated, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered out here in Phoenix, Arizona. And we specialize in all things personal and professional development. And the mode in which we do this is bringing together diverse groups of women from multiple generations of women. And so again, we are just super, super excited here today to bring to you this conversation. And so again, before we dive all the way in, I wanted to just do some housekeeping. And for those of you who are veterans of the bootcamp experience, you already know, go ahead and take out your phone. Summer, our guest Naomi and I are ready. We're picture ready. So just make sure you get our good size. And then once you snap that picture, go ahead and head over to your preferred platform, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or even Pinterest, and just go ahead and post that you're here, that you're excited. If you are joining us live on Facebook, go ahead and invite some of your friends, your associates who are also founders and are looking for additional tools and resources that will help them sharpen their skills. As always, you want to make sure you have a notepad and a pen ready because there's always gems and nuggets that are flying at you, so you don't want to miss them. At any point, you receive a quotable, which is something that's really profound, something that's new information to you, or something that you want to make sure to go and take and incorporate that into your own business. Go ahead and tag us in that as well with the hashtag Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp Series. And what that'll allow us to do is go back and find all of your amazing gems that you received. And then that's going to be a great way for us to continue to share and encourage other people to join us. And one more time, please make sure that you go ahead and share out this video to your network, your community, and other founders who will be able to find benefit in our conversation. So that was a mouthful, but again, I'm super excited to connect with you. And before I introduce you to our guest facilitator today, I want to publicly thank our sponsor, our partner, who really made this whole thing possible, Comerica Bank. I have with us Summer Fawcett, who is an assistant VP at a branch out here over Arizona. And I just wanted to take some time. Again, Summer, thank you so much. Please take some time to introduce yourself to our community and our guests and share anything else that you have for today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I am so happy to be here. This is our 4th installment of the Comerica Boot Camp Comerica's Business Sense Boot Camp. It's a weird situation that we have set up with the pandemic, but we normally have the Business Sense program, which is a 6-month program, and it allows us to kind of dive in, teach people how to run a business, what banks look for, how to run your business successfully, but still be able to be true to your dream, understand what you're selling or what product you have or what services you have, but understand a back end, because having a dream is about 50%. The other 50% would be running it behind scenes. So learning those skills and getting those techniques of what to do as a business. So the boot camp portion came about due to COVID. To be honest, we wanted customers, businesses, small business entrepreneurs, they all wanted to see what they could do to make sure that they could survive and thrive through this time. And to be honest, it's a great time to run a business, great time to be a nonprofit. So this is the time to kind of get all the information you can, soak it up, and try things. If you don't have a business right now, start one. If you're running a business and it's currently at a $50,000 mark, move it to a $100,000 mark. Everybody's putting their money to other things that are a little more local, a little more on an online presence. So they're not spending it on vacation. They're not spending it on their kids going back to school, clothes shopping because their kids are in home. I mean, there's a lot of money kind of still stored up that you can that people can do self-development on, and a lot of it has to do with nonprofits. So right now is certainly the time. So that's where the bootcamp series came from. We're going to do an additional I believe 8 installments that are still going to go on, and I'm super excited. We're going to have different topics, different things to discuss, and this is just a time to gather all your questions, write things down throughout the week, and then come back to us the next time and ask those questions. This is an open resource. To be honest, the time that's being put into these free complimentary webinars, you have about it's an hour to an hour and a half of time frame, which is about $1,000 an hour. To be honest, if you were going to pay for this, it would cost you $1,000 an hour just to learn some of these topics. So if you spread it over 12 resources, that's $12,000 that you're saving just by showing up. So show up, get what you can, take what you want, and move from that. But this is just a fantastic way. Thank you so much to Discover Her Worldwide for allowing Comerica to bring in our bootcamp series and to bring the community together and to make sure the community thrives. So we're super happy to be here. I'll be here with any questions for anyone who might have questions, whether it's banking, entrepreneurship, business running, whatever it is. But I'm here in the background, and I am so excited for what Naomi has to do and has to explain to everybody. So yay, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you again so much, Summer. Again, super grateful to have you here as a resource, right? You're here as a partner. That's one thing that's super pivotal, but you're here as a resource. So again, as Summer said, you are free to ask any question. Today's topic, yes, is around project management. However, if you have questions around finances, if you have questions around how your financial experience has been compromised in any way, Summer is that resource for you to reach out to. So before we introduce you to our guest facilitator today, I want to just recap over the last conversation, but over the last few conversations, because what we find to be happening is every single conversation that we're having is happening to overlap. And so the first conversation that we had when we came together for this series was around, so you think you want to start a nonprofit. It was the fundamentals of setting up your business. And for some of you, you had some questions. Well, I've been in business for a long time. Why do I need to go back to the beginning? You should always make sure you're being innovative. You should always make sure that you are staying up to date and getting the new tools and the new resources. And so if we get in this mindset of I have to be right here, or I have this level of experience, and so I'm good, I don't need help, I don't need to go back to the resource, you are already putting yourself at a disadvantage, because you have to remain an innovative thinker. You have to stay ahead in your own industry. And some people think when there's a saturated industry that's okay for them to stay in their camp, that it's okay for them to just play in that arena. For you to make your impact in any way that you are called, you have to make sure that you are continuing to invest into yourself, both professionally and personally. And so again, these professional development topics are helping equip you with additional resources, knowledge, and tools for business. And the beautiful thing about this, everyone, is that you can take this information and apply it to your business right now. It's not something that you have to wait to apply in a week, 6 weeks, 12 months. You can apply it today. And so again, that first conversation was really powerful. It kind of put us into position around board members, around the legality and structuring our business properly. And then Felicia Davis led us in a conversation around leadership and branding, which was phenomenal. And then our last conversation was the part 1 of project management. And we got a real clear idea of what project management was. We got all these terms thrown at us, and some of us were like, but it was great to be introduced and exposed to a lot of these things because so many of us have, again, been operating our organizations and running our businesses, but not with a solid foundation. And so even if some of the terminology, not just from the last conversation, but today's conversation are new to you, write them down, highlight them, Google them, but also Naomi is here for you to ask your questions, okay? And so today we are going to be talking about project management part 2. We're focusing on workflows, processes, and KPIs, your key performance indicators for your business model. And I'm super, super excited to introduce to you our facilitator for today. Her name is Naomi. And the beautiful thing, as we got to know each other a little bit over the last couple of days, is Naomi is a senior product manager at bodybuilding.com. She is the founder of Her MMA, which is a women's self-defense, kickboxing, and MMA company. She specializes in strategic projects, strategic products, programs, and product leadership. Naomi has worked as a consultant with Spectrum Charter Communications, Excel Energy, Wells Fargo, LA Fitness, and many others in product, process, and people leadership. So without further ado, I am happy to welcome and thank you so much, Naomi, for joining us today. How are you?
For having me. So thank you very much for having me. So
Absolutely.
You wanted to talk about process and some of the building blocks within project and program and product management for successfully getting things out to launch. I don't know where you'd like to start that conversation, but I do have some talking points on that.
Absolutely. So. Good. No, so keep those talking points. We're going to dive right in. So we're going to kind of, it's going to be beautiful, right? Because it's going to be kind of like an ebb and flow conversation as we talked about, right? So we're going to just, the first question I want to ask you, for your perspective, we already heard it in the last conversation, but we have a number of new people. So the first question, what is project management?
Project management is essentially you have an idea of some kind of nebulous something you're wanting to do, and you're going to put some form around it. You're going to make sure you measure what your success is, and you're eventually going to launch that baby, whatever that baby project is, whatever that thing that you have that your vision is. You're going to take that nebulous form and you're actually going to transform it into something that's marketable and gives you a return on investment, whether that's a nonprofit of actually helping people and having some metrics there, or if it's an actual commerce or subscription service where you actually have additional dollars associated with it. So it's pretty broad, but that can range from doing a software project that helps, get an application out to market. It can be you got a new t-shirt line you're wanting to produce. It can be, you're working on helping women in DV shelters. And so you've created a solution to be able to help those women. So it's pretty broad, but it's just taking that idea and getting it some form around it and getting it out to market.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And so, yeah, let's dive a little bit deeper on that same topic, right? So, so project management, it's the mode, it's the process, the framework of you being able to get your service, your project out to the individuals you're trying to serve, right? Your audience, your target. And so the main conversation we're having today is around the workflow in the processes and key performance indicators. So, I mean, if everybody else is ready, I just want to be sure if you're ready, just post in the comments, I'm ready, because we're about to push on the gas, okay? So just go ahead and put in the comments that you are ready, and then we are going to go ahead and take all the way off. So the first question or I guess the second question, really breaking this down, the conversation around project management, let's talk a little bit about just terminology. Talk about workflows for a second, talk about processes, and what are KPIs?
Okay. So within project management, there's usually two frameworks for delivery. You have waterfall, which is literally kind of as it sounds, waterfalls down, you finish one part, you move on to the next. You have agile, which is more about continuous deployment, not having a perfect product at the end, but working towards it. Those are going to be two main terms you hear about for project management. For KPIs, this is what you're going to measure your success on. You're going to measure your success about engagement, for example, how many people are using your product. You're going to measure it on your return on investment, what your lifetime value is, which is another term. If you want to take that down, to go look that up, there's formulas on how to develop that. And that's basically your how much effort you spent on something and what is your return. And that's how you get your lifetime value per each of your customers. So that's kind of the short of it, and go in more depth if you want to go that far, but I'm thinking we might go down that path anyway. So
we're gonna continue, and we're gonna circle back to these conversations. And so for everyone, the key performance indicators, let's talk about that. I think that'd be a really good place to start, and go through the key KPIs, the key performance indicators, and how we should set those up. How should we start establishing our KPIs? I think we talked about just a little bit last session. Summer, you can correct me, but we talked a little bit about SOPs, standard operating. Yes, we did. Standard operating procedures. And can you just say, just quickly, what's the difference between your standard operating procedures and your KPIs?
Your standard operating procedures are going to be how you run your business. That's like, your processes, that kind of thing. Your KPIs are referring to specific quantifiable measurements that you're going to use to gauge your overall performance. You're going to determine your strategic, your financial, how much your costs are, your operational, what achievements you are. It's really how you measure your business. Your standard operating procedures are going to be how you get there.
Great. Thank you so much for that clarification. And so let's go dive in. I want us to give some specific examples on how we can set up our key performance indicators, our KPIs for our businesses. So majority of the people here are service-based businesses, right? So they have programs, they host events, they are service providers whereby they are a consultant, and they are sharing their expertise or knowledge with other people. So how, or selling their knowledge and expertise to other people. So how do they go about establishing their key performance indicators?
That's going to be, what is your business question you're answering? So if you're looking at your reach for audience, you're going to be setting KPIs around your marketing metrics, what percentage are you getting viewed, that type of stuff. You're going to be looking at your brand awareness and that kind of thing. So that's actually kind of a foundational thing, even for a nonprofit or for a traditional business, is that you're going to want to know what your customer retention is. And that is your clients coming in, and leaving, and that kind of thing, how long it's going to take, that kind of stuff. When you're looking at like services or that kind of thing, you're just going to be looking at your engagement again. A lot of times you can use things like Google. If you have the funding and the ability, Google Analytics is really great to be able to track some of this stuff. You want to understand how they're interacting with your product, what your ratios are, your net promoter scores, which is loyalty and satisfaction, that kind of thing. And I'm primarily on the commerce and the subscription type services. So these are metrics that I look at when I'm doing business stuff. But there's a gazillion different metrics you can look at for key performance indicators. The biggest thing is making sure that they're relevant for your business, because you can have all the data in the world, but if it's not relevant to your specific business questions that you're trying to answer, they're useless. So I think that's one really important thing to note.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And now, in regard to your workflow, you can really take it from here. Regardless, regarding workflow or processes, you go ahead and just take it from there. What is most important when it comes to the workflow and establishing how to set those things up?
Sure. Comes back to the idea. The different types of projects are going to require different kind of methodologies. There's a lot of different methodologies out there. You can go online and do a search, and you're going to find Kanban, you're going to find Scrum, which is the Agile methodologies. You're going to find Waterfall. You're going to find the concepts from Six Sigma. You're going to find a large amount of information, but each project is going to be very different depending on what your business goal is. So the first question is, are you doing something that's going to be in a highly regulated field? Because if you're in a highly regulated field, you probably want to do Waterfall, because it's going to have you dot all your I's and cross all your T's to make sure that you're waterfalling down each aspect. Are you in a software? Then you're going to be looking at probably something that has a continuous development process. You're going to start from the beginning and the end. A continuous development means you come up with some very, very basic framework of what is the minimal lovable product? What is the minimal thing that can work for your business question, and can I iterate on it to create perfection down the road? And you work through that process. That's going to be more along the lines of an agile framework, which is, I know I'm using a lot of terms pretty fast. But that's going to be usually either Kanban, which is going to be more about visualizing your work, or Scrum, which is going to be more about the velocity of the work and the continuous, some of the continuous flow. So that's kind of some of it. Really, really high level. I can go in more depth if we need to, but I want to make sure I'm on the right track.
No, absolutely. No, that's spot on. And again, at any point for everybody who's tuning in live, we are having the conversation around project management. This is our conversation. So we're diving into workflows, we're diving into processes and key performance indicators. So at any point, if you have questions, if what Naomi is saying is over your head, and here's the thing, we are experts in our element, and Naomi and I were having this conversation, and so she can break this down to a granule. So I want you to, whatever questions that you have, they are valid questions. And so at any point you have a question for myself, Summer, Naomi, go ahead and drop that question into the comments, and we'll go ahead and answer those questions. So yeah, if you feel you can dive a little bit deeper into those specific processes, right? Because our previous guest mentioned waterfall. She mentioned Scrum, Agile, and so yeah, if you want to, just you can go ahead and break those down for us as well.
So I'll give examples of two different examples. One of more of a waterfall, one of more of an agile development process. Great. So for an example, I had Excel Energy who went from JD Edwards, it's an accounting software, to SAP. They wanted to change softwares because of the ability to scale and some of the other capabilities in reporting. So first step in that process is getting from that business stakeholder or whoever's generating the idea, what is that idea? Then you're going to go take that idea back to your engineering team, whoever's doing the development, if you have a contractor working on it, and get their input into that idea so that you can understand the feasibility, the timeline, and what resources it's going to take. Sounds like it's going to be a process here. You take that back to the stakeholders and you go, okay, so if this is what you want and you have to have all these metrics, then this is how long it's going to take and this is the resources it's going to take. Are you okay with the cost and the time? That person may or may not be okay with that. And at that point, you have to start prioritizing what are the top 5 things you want to see from this. Once you nail that down, you break it down into a document. It's a work breakdown structure of these are the key items that you have to work on. And these are the key deliverables. And these are what are requirements to be able to deliver what the business is asking for. And you further break that down into smaller chunks. I've gotten as granular as literally day-to-day tasks on high priority projects, because that is what the business is asking for because of how much money is going into the development process. Yeah. So you go through that process. So you have a kickoff with all these details you've managed to put together. You build up some KPIs, which again is pairing with your stakeholders, your business, and going, what information do I want to know when this project launches? Which again, this is kind of a side segment here, but you have to find out those details as well in that process. Sorry, I'm backtracking there a little bit, but you have to make sure you have those deliverables and what those metrics are going to look like. You incorporate it into your plan. You have a formal kickoff where you get everybody back to the table now that you've had all these side discussions and go, this is our mission, this is the plan, this is our timeline. And then after everyone signs off and says, yes, that is, and I would get an email confirmation from everybody, because backtracking and having people say, well, I didn't say that, is something that happens when people forget about a project when it's been 6 months, especially in waterfall, because a lot of these projects in waterfall are longer. You want to make sure you have some documentation going along the way. And that's another key thing of having like some place to put all this stuff. So you go through this process. You can put it in Microsoft Project. Not the most user-friendly thing I will be saying to anyone who's new. So there's also some cloud-based solutions that work a little more easy. Zoho is another one to check out. And you put it into a plan. And then the project manager's job is to go and make sure you hold these people accountable to be able to deliver this stuff. I had daily meetings with my teams to do a pulse check, to make sure things were still on plan. If something started to go sideways, that's when you do a risk analysis on it. You should have done one at the beginning too, but you do a risk analysis where you check in and you see what is wrong and how do we fix it? What's the solution? Sometimes you'll find out you're missing some piece of hardware that you need, or some extra developer that specializes in a specific area. And that point, you have to kind of solve for that if you haven't figured it out at the beginning. And that can come from just not knowing if you have churn at a company or something else. So anyway, you go through that process, you keep the pulse on it, and then you get to launch. Well, you don't actually get to launch there. You actually have to do some QA and check to make sure that this project is actually stable and has some quality in it. To make sure that you run through all the glitches, you make sure that you have a user testing on this, and you have someone within the business and possibly some people outside of the business try out your product to make sure it works. Get to launch. Everyone has a hoorah, celebration. We've launched this product. And then you have post after your project. And that is, you did all the QA testing, the project's launched, it's out to consumers, but you still get feedback from your customers. If you're keeping a check on this, if it's internal or external, you're gonna get feedback of, hey, this doesn't work, or hey, I need this extra report. Can we build this new feature into the project? Now with Agile, you can quickly do that. With Waterfall, it usually means starting another project. This is where Waterfall has a little bit of a give and take for it. But with Waterfall, it's more easy to follow that A to B to Z step, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Go down the line and follow and check off all your boxes. With an Agile, it's a continuous flow. So you can re-add that into your project and continue to iterate on your project. But usually at the end of a Waterfall project, you have a finished product, and that is considered finished. So you take the feedback and you can create other projects going down the road. So now I'm going to take a break real quick before I segment into the Agile process and make sure no one has any questions along the way and I didn't miss something that someone wants to bring up.
No, this is so good. So you mentioned several things, and this is exactly what I was like, no, go ahead and run it all the way down. Run us where you need us to go. Okay. Because I want everyone to really understand that even though project management may not be the role that they are best in, right, for their own organizations, right, it's really essential that they understand project management to where they're able to communicate with whoever they end up outsourcing to. And yeah, so for a number of us, we've talked about the conversation around hiring. There are a number of founders who are here who are pretty much running every avenue of their business, and we talked about that how challenging that can be. And so our goal here, right, Summer and my goal is for them to be able to master whatever they're doing right now, if they happen to be operating by themselves, but also so they're able to really get a clear understanding of what they need and who they need to be able to outsource and hire when said time comes, right? And so no, like it was really, for me, I'm like, yeah, I love this stuff, but that's me. But no, it was, again, you really broke down that concept of waterfall, and I value and appreciate you for that. You mentioned a couple of things, and I'm looking at the Facebook Live as well. What you mentioned, there are a number of different tools, project management tools, and again, this is something that we had on the conversation last segment. But what are some additional tools you mentioned? Microsoft Project. I'm familiar with Asana, Trello. I'm kind of a Trello chick myself. Clio. What are some other project management tools? And then in that same question, what should you be looking out for in these tools?
Sure. So MS Project is a traditional one. A lot of big corporations use it. It's kind of the dinosaur. It's a little clunky, I'll be really honest. So it takes a little bit of time figuring out how to use that, especially the Gantt chart part, because that'll be the pain point for most folks, is being able to get the waterfall to actually flow in the Gantt chart properly. If you want to take a tutorial on that, I think Linda Learning and a few other places have those tutorials, but it is a traditional, almost like Excel spreadsheets, but a little bit extra complicated. So that'll take you through building out a project plan. You can also use Zoho. Zoho is cloud-based. It's a fairly new solution, but they've done a really good job with it. It's very intuitive, and the KPIs are actually built into it. And you can work with your engineering teams and integrate the Agile sprints, which is most engineering teams work on Agile, into your traditional waterfall as well, and keep status. So it's an integrated solution. It's really great. I love working with it. There's also Atlassian tools. Atlassian is a company that makes Jira and Confluence. Confluence acts like a Wikipedia. It allows you to store documentation. It allows you to keep track of things, and it allows you to search terms for old documents, which is great when you're looking for a needle in a haystack. It's a little bit more friendly than, say, SharePoint, which I think most people have heard of SharePoint by now. So SharePoint's a dinosaur too. So yep. Just in my opinion. So those are some of the key tools. Jira is what a lot of engineering teams use, and it's really great for agile frameworks. It allows you to build up cards. It allows you to build Scrum boards. It allows you to build Kanban boards and have KPIs around your engineering team and how they're progressing. One thing I was going to segment into with the Scrum aspect is they have a key to being able to measure your velocity and how fast you're getting things done. It's a little bit more complicated, and I can get into that later, but velocity is really key, just to know how fast your team is working and what they're capable of managing. So you don't want to overload your engineers and then have them not get anything done. So it allows you to be able to do that so that people are on fire constantly, which is good, you know.
One of the things that you're mentioning, which is really essential, Naomi, is just speaking to the velocity point of this, for all of for everybody who's on, right? Those of you who are service providers, when Naomi's mentioning the engineers, she's talking about your team members, right? Like when you are bringing anything to fruition, you have to have other people who are part of the project as well, right? So if you are delivering a service, you're talking to your other facilitators, you are talking to your hospitality team, you are talking to any volunteers that are coming on board, you are talking to your retention team. That's what, so again, if Naomi is using a term that may be more connected to, or you may not know how it's relating to your organization or for you, just go ahead and again and post a question there. But I just wanted to go back and make it clear that when she's talking about engineers, that's just another term for whoever your team member is. Okay.
Yep. It's your team members. It's the people working on the project. I should have clarified there. Sorry about that.
No, stop it.
I'm so used to working with engineers nonstop. Sorry, 1 second. I got kiddos.
No, she's great. And so I also wanted to add in, I'm looking at some of the comments. Monday and Basecamp are some other really good tools, right? So those I just wanted to piece in that kind of conversation as well. And so you're mentioning Asana. That's the next really big segment of project management. So you can go ahead and talk about Asana.
Asana, are you talking about the Agile?
Agile.
Sorry. Okay. So Agile is a lot faster development process. It's common in software. It's common in engineering. And it's basically a structured and iterative approach to project management or product development. It understands that your product may change midway. So the challenge to say a software development project, and it will relate if you're doing any kind of software within your nonprofit even, is that you can start with one thing and technology can do a 360 while you're in the middle of doing development to which you have to adapt to. So this allows you to rapidly adapt to the changes. This is the one really major pro to doing Agile. So within Agile framework, there's 2 methodologies. If you want to take this as a note, it's really good to note. There's Kanban, which will allow you to visualize your work. It limits your work in progress so you're not overloading with a ton of things all at once. And it's going to maximize some of your flow. It's going to focus on reducing some of the time that it takes to do a project from the user stories from your start to finish. And this is done often in Jira or some format for a Kanban board where you're going to have traditional swim lanes that take you through the process of in ideation or in the backlog through getting it developed and pipelined and completed and QA'd. So, and Scrum's going to work kind of similar to that as well, which is the next part to this. And please interrupt me if I'm going too fast. Scrum's going to take you working through intervals that are called sprints. They usually have a diagram that's a circle. And the goal is going to create a loop to gather information and customer feedback as you're developing. Sorry about that. And so, and it's not, I apologize.
No, I said it's COVID. We understand.
I say kids coming in. My 4-year-old just decided to zoom in for a second. So anyway, back to what I was saying. It took me a second there. So Scrum, you're going to usually have some defined roles. Hopefully one person's not doing everything. If you can break it up, I really strongly suggest it just because it can become a lot. And you're going to have a Scrum Master. You're going to have your product or project manager who helps out on the outside with the idea. And you're going to have the actual engineers or team members working on the development. So that's going to be a key thing to be able to break that up to make it work. And you're going to create ceremonies as you're going through, which is a really deep dive that I probably can't go into on this call, but those ceremonies are as you're processing, it's your milestones as you're going. It's kind of like equates to milestones. With Scrum, you usually work within a 2-week cycle, which is really good because you're quickly producing things and releasing them. So you're biting things into smaller chunks and then sending them on to QA and to launch. So that's really helpful when you're doing something that requires something to be fast. So that's gonna be kind of like the quick of it. The one thing between Scrum and Kanban is the change management that happens with it. In Scrum, you can make changes, but you usually try to finish at the end of the 2 weeks to add those changes. With Kanban, you're at it at any time, but Kanban, you literally have a board that gets kind of large, and you can end up with a lot of tasks in there, which is noise if you're trying to keep a clean swim lane. So that's the only challenge that kind of I've seen happen there.
No, so I like that you're mentioning these things for a few reasons, right? Because again, project management, it's an entire beast.
Oh yeah.
Right. So the one thing that I want to just mention to everybody who's having this particular conversation is it's really important that as you're working on your projects, your services, and you're bringing them to fruition, or you already have them up, but you're not seeing the results that you desire to see in your business, I want you to just take a moment and step back, right? Just be receptive of everything that we're talking about here today. And again, the conversation that we're having, you're going to be able to apply a lot of these details to your own business, but you have to identify what works best for you. And so I want to just give an example for even my own events. Okay, so when it comes to the conference experience, the Women in Action conference, and a number of you have been there as well. The finished project is everybody having a great time, all of these dynamic speakers, and the speaker's getting paid on a really good day, right? Like, let's have that conversation. The food, like, there's so many different elements that are wrapped up in the Woman in Action conference experience, right? And you can say the same thing. Look at the final picture, the end goal of your own experience. Okay, so follow me through this process. Now, what I like to do is I start with the end in mind and work backwards. I know what the end goal should look like with the venue and the food and my hospitality team directing people where they need to go. Each of my speakers have one of my volunteers in their room, so that if there's any technical difficulties, if a paper needs to be passed out, if a pen needs to be passed out, right? There's so many intricate details that some of us honestly may not even think go into the event, into the experience, into the service, right, that you're presenting. And so again, so now we're at that phase of understanding all of the little details that are wrapped up. And then you get to this point of making sure that you not only have the people in place to do these things, because again, we went back to the conversation around those of us who are the people who are wearing multiple hats. It's a challenge, right? Because you need to be able to direct other people to be able to execute what you need or what the vision that you see. And so through this whole process, you get to this point of really breaking it down to where you're able to speak directly to each component of the project, from the team, from the event space, from the other aspects that are required for your particular event or service. Again, for me, that can go one route with this conference, whether it's bringing in additional media or press, right? Because we want other people to know what it is that we're doing. When it comes into the requirements that we have for our photographers and videographers, there's specific things that they need to take. We can't just have somebody taking a picture. You want the angles. If I say show of hands if you need this, we need our people, our team members being able to master those specific requirements and expectations. All of this, everything that I just mentioned, everything that Naomi is talking about is part of project management. And so when we're, again, having this conversation of what it means to really begin to incorporate these components of project management into your own business, that's really what we want you to take time to really take to think about going through this process. And so I just want to stop for a second and see who has questions. How are you doing? This is a lot of information. And so I just want to see where you are at this point. Summer, if you have anything, you can go ahead and add to. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I really think the information is certainly crucial. I don't handle project management, so I love to outsource that. And all the words that you're saying, all the phrases, I've heard them. Doesn't mean I know exactly what they are, but listening to it allows me to understand a little bit more and how in depth it is. Because first you're thinking, why in the world would I hire a project manager? Why would I do that for my business? And then when you look at it, you're just like, oh gosh, it takes all of this. It's like, yes, it takes all of that. So
the project manager's job is to go and find out all those additional questions that you may not be thinking about. That's the big thing about
what you don't know that you don't know is what hurts you in business. So that is extremely important for that project manager to take their experience and their expertise and to bring it to your business. It's just like reading a book and getting information and gaining wisdom from someone else's failures. Project manager has already done everything. They're calculated. They know what they're doing. So they're bringing that to your business. So you're just like, oh, so I can just sit back and check off and say yes or no. It's a lot easier than being in the weeds of it and thick of it and just trying to figure your way out to, to the light at the end of the tunnel. So this is extremely needed. This is up there with like your CPA. So I would definitely agree to this.
Yeah, again, in Summer, you mentioned just a couple of really good points too, is really just understanding, like, though this may not be your lane, right? This is not your creative genius. That's fine. But one of the things, I think I talked about this just the last conversation, the last segment that we had, is I ended up hiring somebody for marketing, and that person got paid. Let's be clear on this. And I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know what questions to ask that person. And so even though they got paid, I was like, wait a minute, I'm not seeing the results that I need. Like, no one's signing up for my stuff. Like, what is happening? And I started paying for ads. What is going on? The reality of it is I was not articulating the difference between awareness and conversion. And if you don't know the difference between awareness and conversion, that's where you will find yourself into some trouble like me. But no, again, I didn't know. I was just like, I'm going to outsource this because I don't want to market. I'm going to outsource this because I don't want to worry about sales. How are you about to be a business owner and not worrying about sales? Right. So that's really where I ended up learning these things essentially the hard way. And I know many of you, and go ahead and raise your hand, even though we can't see you, go ahead and raise your hands. A lot of you are DIYing yourselves to exhaustion. Stop it. Stop it right now. Because we have people who can give you the resources, the support, and the tools in which you need. Yes, it will likely require an investment, but that's the other part to this beautiful conversation. You have to be willing to invest into, your professional development. It's so monumentally important. And so again, my personal goal for all the work that I do as a consultant in the professional development space around partnership strategy, event creation, as well as just business development for the nonprofit founders, my main goal is to expedite your learning process so you don't have to learn the lessons the hard way in which I did, right? And so bringing this conversation, I knew it was going to be hefty. I knew it was going to be a lot. But again, I wanted to make sure that we give you a little bit of a two-piece combo, and then you're able to break it down, digest it, and apply which aspects are relevant. Because again, you can apply this information today, starting today, okay? So again, we're gonna continue this conversation around project management. At any point you have any questions, go ahead and drop them, because again, we're here to answer your questions. And I just want to note for the record, because you can't see us on Facebook, but we have some people in the comments talking about I'll stop. Again, you got to stop DIYing yourself to exhaustion. You don't need to, and you're working way harder than you need to be. I want you to be able to focus on making your impact in the lives of those you're called to lead. And so that's what this conversation is for. Okay. Awesome. So let's jump back in, Naomi. I do have a couple questions. Are you able to go to that route? Perfect.
Absolutely.
So one of the questions that I had is, where do I start? I know that's a big question, and I know we've talked about it, but when it comes to project management, if you can answer that, like, where should a person start when it comes to project management?
When it comes to learning project management, I would say that I would look up the key terms of Agile, Scrum, Kanban, and Waterfall and see what framework works best for you. I would also say that by starting in the sense of starting a project or an idea, the first step is writing it down and putting it somewhere where you can access it, putting it somewhere if you have a group of people you're working with that they all can collaborate and access it. So it's in one place that you can communicate. Whether that's like a Google Doc or if you are getting as advanced as Atlassian tools with the Confluence, or wherever you're putting it, but you need to start noting and putting some form down. You're gonna look at what you wrote down as a scribble, maybe it's 2 lines of an idea, and then you're gonna start asking questions of who, what, when, where, how, and why. And those are gonna be your questions you're gonna ask of that idea and start breaking it down further. The whole key with project management is taking something that's a very large nebulous idea, adding some definition, and then building out how you're going to do it, how you're going to get it implemented. And then once you have it implemented, what is your quality going to be? You know, and what is your metrics of success? What means that this has actually been successful? And then when you get done with launching a product, it doesn't just stop there. You have to know, what do you do next time? If you're doing a conference like you were talking about, then what is the feedback that we got from the people who attended? How do we take that and add that in so that we can make it a better experience? Or if you have if you're in an actual conference hall, I'm just talking about based off of your one concept there. If you have a conference hall and you have video services and you had hiccups there, how do we improve and streamline that? What did we forget about that we learned? What's a retrospect? And that's something you're going to hear a lot in Agile is, what is your retrospective? And you do that even within Waterfall as well. What worked? What didn't work? What can we do better? If it's something that you need to address right away, for example, a glitch in software, you're going to address that either in a new project or through that iterative process in Agile. But this is kind of like the base thing that you start out with a project. Like, you have to have those concepts in place of who, what, when, where, and how. And so that's like, you're going to ask those questions on almost any idea you have. So and then you take it through that process step by step. And it really does get pretty granular to day-by-day tasks if you have something that's pretty massive. That way you just don't lose any of those details and you can address those risks pretty early on.
Thank you so much for breaking that down. I really love how you took us through that whole process. I feel like I know I was able to follow you through it, right? Because even some of the key points that you were mentioning around if you experience this particular issue, what's your retrospect? How are you going to pivot? What variable are you going to change, right? It's all the same, just a different way of explaining it or looking at the situation, right? And so that's pivotal. Just to highlight this point that you mentioned around what are you measuring, right? Part of the key performance indicators that we talked about earlier. You're looking at how to improve. For those of you who have been to WeaCon, not just the last experience, but previous WeaCons, every single year it gets better. And if it didn't, shame on me. And if it didn't, no one would come to the next one, right? That's the reality of that. And you can say that again for your own projects. So one of the main things that I looked at from the first one to the second one was, the first one, it was self-funded. The second one, heck no. Right. That was, and the reality of it for me was that was a big deal, right? For other people, it may not be as simple as self-funding the experience, but for a lot of people it is. Okay. The other side of that is when it came to the type of speakers or the type of location I wanted to have for the experience. That was key. And that played a very significant role into the experience. And so then from year 2 to 3, something else that was really interesting that I saw was, number one, in year 2, we lost $40,000 in sponsorship. That's a whole conversation for another day, y'all. We're not going to even talk about that. But that was something that really put everything, not some things, but everything into perspective for me in that second year of my conference, because I really was at a place of, yeah, I quit. Like, this is not for me. I'm not going to do this anymore. But what I knew in that situation was that my purpose, my calling, my able to make an impact was so much greater than that one thing failing. And so what you just mentioned about what questions do you ask, I started asking those questions. And I call her my fairy godmother, because as I started asking myself these questions, like, how am I able, to bounce back after losing this amount of money? Like, what am I what am I supposed to do? I call her, like I said, my fairy godmother. She came around and she was like, what do you need? Da, da, da. And again, I thought the process was going to be super, extensive or elaborate to try and figure out how to pivot, right? Or how to make things work. She called some people on three-way in the conversation and was like, hey, yeah, we need this. All right, cool. Thanks so much. I'll send you an email. All right, cool. We need this. And I'll tell you, everybody, we recouped over $30,000 in sponsorships in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. And so again, I want to break this down for the simple fact is, as we're talking about project management, there will be times where you run into an issue or a challenge that is completely out of your control. Sometimes it's in your control, and you still have to be able and willing to pivot. And so I wanted to just share that example. Your example may not be that crazy, but whatever your example was, it was crazy for you, right? And so again, just being sure that as we're going through this process, looking at from the previous experiences to the experiences that we are part of now, just make sure that you're learning from every experience to the next one. The final point that I'll make on this is, our third experience, last conference, Summer was there, a number of people who are on were there, and some of them, it was their first one. So they're like, oh my God, this is great. And I'm like, thank you. We worked hard, and there was a reason why this one was great. And I'm talking about, we had pretty much what would you say, like a catered breakfast, if you will, from the venue. And then it was like a 4 or 5 course meal for lunch or whatever. I mean, we had salmon and chicken and all these other great things. And then there were snacks throughout the day. There was dessert by the end of the conference. People can just walk up and pull a pop soda or a soda, whatever you call it, out of the fridge, right? Like, it was something that we had issues before with food and whatever. And so I was like, nope, that's not going to be a problem, because if that is something that can make or break this experience, it's not going to be it. So I just completely removed the ability or the possibility of that being an issue from the next one. And then again, from this year, we had to postpone due to COVID, but our Women in Action 2021 experience is going to be even greater than what this year would have been, because we now have that time to continue to evolve. Are you following me, everyone? So when it comes to your projects that you're working on, it's the main point that I'm driving home is for those of you who are seasoned, you've made an impact at some point. You have a current project that you're working on right now, but yet you need to pivot. You need to figure out which variables you need to tweak and make better or improve. Start by looking at what you were doing previously and where you want to be, and take those necessary steps to get there, right? So that's one of the things that I just wanted to make sure to drive home, to break everything that we're talking about down to a level that is really tangible.
Yeah, I think Sharika had a question.
Yes, yep, I was just about to go to Sharika.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sharika. You can go ahead and let me see if I can.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, Sharika.
Hi. So my comment is kind of similar to yours, but also I think we also don't want to get in, because we're in COVID. And for me, this would have been my 5th year of having my hands on STEM Fair. And every year it has gotten better. But so I've had 300, has been over 300. But this year, because of COVID, I've had to now go virtual. So now it's going to be 50. And so being mindful that when you have an event that's outside, like a big event like that it normally would be, where I would have had 300, but because it's in the virtual space, you can't have that many, you can't have it. And so for me, I have to remember that when I go and do comparisons and project and reflections, it's a different world now. And so just being okay with that. Like, I had to be okay with, I can't have 300 people on Zoom. Because the 300 people that come to my event are in that digital divide right now. And so they don't even have the technology to be able to be in my space.
Wow.
So it's just more of a comment, and more so to think about for others that are listening is, sometimes in this, because of COVID, it's not going to be an apple to apples comparison.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of moving forward. And so just reminding yourself of that, because I think we get so stuck in, it has to be better, it has to be better. But for me, it's like, okay, it just has to be, I still have to produce the same quality. And I want these 50 kids who have a great experience. Yes, I would have loved to have 300, but that's not realistic for where we're at right now. And so just my 2 cents.
No, that's a really big deal. Summer, you wanted to chime in. I'll let you go.
Yeah, I had, because that was part of my question as well for Naomi. And based on what Sharika said, our world is different. So how do we take the project management experiences and what we would do in person to the new way we're doing things for now? Naomi, what do you suggest?
A lot of the tools that you use to track projects are going to be all the same because it's all computerized. There's a lot of cloud-based stuff. Emails, you can share stuff, but there's also limitations of how large a file you can share, and I get that. With technology, there's a lot of different options out there to solve. I do a lot of Zoom meetings with the folks. It's pretty much my life has turned into nothing but Zoom meetings and try to keep my kids occupied while I'm Zoom meetings. So, so that's the new challenge of today. As far as expectations on a business, on an idea, on a retrospective, when you're doing a retrospective, you're looking at all of the factors. So if you had something that came in like COVID, it does change things. For example, at bodybuilding.com, our services, our streaming and subscription services were all set to being a personal trainer in your pocket in the gym. Well, gym's closed. So we had a huge loss in subscribers in March when everything shut down. So when we're looking at that, we're not just looking at the failure of that we lost these subscribers. We're looking at what can we do differently? What can we do new? How can we adapt to the current situation or scale our project out? So a retrospective doesn't have to be about we failed. It can be about, hey, here's the opportunities that we see because unfortunately this door is closed, but these are 3 more doors that are open. So half empty, half full kind of perspective when you're looking at these. You definitely want to stay positive. You also just want to look for solutions though, like sitting there with the roadblock and saying it's a roadblock, you know, it is a roadblock, but how do you solve for that? How do you move past it? And what kind of idea generation you can do for that? And I rely heavily on, in my field, on my designers who have ideas, the creative people I work with who do digital work, and, you know, the data that I can get from surveys, from the internet. I mean, you can have fluctuations in attendance for a conference or something just based on the weather. If it's stormy out, people sometimes tend to not go out. So same thing with the internet, though. I mean, if you have something major going on in the news, you can find out, hey, this is going on. People may not be present, and you can kind of accommodate for that. Or you can look at a retrospective and be like, okay, well, this was going on at the same time, or this is a technical glitch we had, and this is why it didn't work. There's a lot of times, though. I mean, we have folks that are even within bodybuilding.com that, you know, have their face up in the camera like this saying, are you there yet? You know, so, and you have different levels of expectations of how people interact with technology and how fluent they are. So you kind of just adapt along the way and have a little extra patience for yourself and others. I mean, that's the biggest thing right now.
Yeah, thank you.
And, you know, Naomi mentioned a few great points, a number of great points in that same conversation. So as I was mentioning, you know, we're planning for 2021. We have 2 visions for 2021. And hear me out when I share this. We're praying that the world opens back up. But if it does not, we are not going to put ourselves in that position to try to bring people to a live experience, a live in-person experience, right? At that same, you know, in that same regard, there's some people who wouldn't even want to come to a live experience, even if the world opens back up. And we're not going to go through this whole COVID and, you know, the dynamics of that. But the point that I'm making here is, because we are, you know, trying to figure out like what would be the best solution. We wholeheartedly believe that the in-person experience is what makes the conference, but we also have to still be able and willing to pivot. And so we have the part two is doing this entire experience virtual. And there's so many different ways that we know that we can do it, because we started seeing other people, how they decided to change and pivot. And I want to speak to this because this particular year, it wasn't just that COVID hit, so we canceled. I was also 3 months postpartum. I wasn't going to be trying to plan an entire conference in that particular season. So it was a little sense of relief for me when this hit, because it wasn't as deteriorating for us, but that was us. Many other people were hit really, really hard. There's a number of people, like I said, I know who are on this call today. They have live experience as well. And, you know, to your point, Naomi, some of the people are in the camera like this. Not everybody who is the visionary knows how to navigate the digital world. Right. So we have to look at the two sides, not just the attendees coming or the attendees no longer subscribing to go to the gym because they're not at the gym. It's also the visionary, the founder, being able to be just as proactive to say, oh, there's some talk around a global pandemic. What do I need to change right now? Right. There were so many people who were late to the party, and for lack of better words, they got caught slipping because they weren't prepared. And I know we talked about this before. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I want to drive that point home as well, because again, like I said, we don't know what's going to happen next year, right? So you have to be able to be proactive. You have to be able to be willing to pivot and, take a, excuse me, you want to make sure that, again, as you're looking for innovative ways to make your impact, it goes back to the same conversation that we had a little bit earlier. I mentioned that you want to stay at the top of your industry. You want to stay at the front, the forefront of other people's mind, your customers' mind, your clients' mind, the people in which you serve, in front of their mind. And again, that requires you to continue to be innovative. And I think that really leads into the conversation around another question that we have, Naomi, and you can go ahead and answer this, a little bit of again, being proactive and being willing to pivot. People are looking to learn more about business models, different business models that they have, so that they can expand their organization's program portfolio. Talk a little bit about this. Again, this is great because we're talking about how to navigate the post-COVID world, right? That's the conversation. And so I ask the question again. They're looking for more information about the business models and how they can expand their organization's program portfolio. So can you really bring us home a little bit with that point?
Okay. So with today's marketplace, there's a lot of places that are in the mode of being reactive. We kind of are all in that reactive mode. As far as being able to expand your business model or your ideas, that's going to be really dependent on your team of people that you have involved to help generate those ideas. One solution I do for ideas, though, is I tend to go into Linda Learning quite often. There's a ton of different ideas on how to run a business. There's the Six Sigma lean process, which helps you run pretty lean with a lean team, so a small team, and being able to deliver really agile and in a really a flexible way. And so that's one way, if you're looking at the process of how you're running things. And that's one of the things I use. Someone also, Mark, you comment about Udemy. I use Udemy all the time. Yep. I'm pretty much in one of those things. I think I've taken 120 courses total. Yeah, I'm constantly on Audible listening to something. And there's the recent one I was listening to is how to build $1 billion app, because her MMA is going to be in an app for training for women in DV shelters, as well as the general population, how to self-defend. So that's what I've been working on, is just listening through this Audible that happens to go through what are the success metrics of other people. One other way to build your business model is do competitive analysis. This is something that's key when you start a business anyways. Look at your competitors. A lot of times you can find their information online if you decide to do some quick searching. If you want to see what a company's tags on their websites look like, there's actually a widget you can add into your web browser, and you can actually take apart their website and find out what they did in their website to kind of reverse engineer and get data from that. So there's different kinds of technologies out there, so you can really learn about what your competitors are doing. And that also generates ideas for your business and how to model your way of doing things. As you mentioned before, and many other people probably know this, is one tool doesn't fit all. So I can't suggest any one specific business model that's going to work best, because it's, especially the world we're in right now, is just totally in flux, you know? So, but those are my thoughts. I hope they were helpful.
No, Naomi, this has been like a really, really great and dynamic conversation. I love that we were able to dive a little bit deeper. Again, this is part 2 of project management, and we heard a number of these terms last segment, but we wanted to make sure, like, okay, this is new for a lot of people. Let's not go too deep. And so again, like, this was again part 2, so it was great to really dive deeper, because for the people who've been joining us, they heard the terms agile, they heard the terms Scrum, they've heard the terms waterfall, and then now it's like, all right, I didn't look it up last time, so what is it, right? And so again, we were able to have those conversations today. But what's also beautiful is we were able to really look a little bit deeper at how we can go ahead and establish our workflows, our processes, and our KPIs, which is going to be the change-making difference in your business moving forward. So for everyone who has been joining us, we'd love to hear, take a couple moments and share like any other questions that you have. What was a major takeaway? Go ahead and post that in the comment section. Go ahead and unmute yourself for those of you who are live. But we'd love to know what was something that was new, what was innovative, what was like something that you didn't know before that you now know. And then let's make sure that we are taking that time to implement some of the things that we talked about today. And one of the best ways, as you're getting ready to post your comments or getting ready to take yourself off mute, the ways that you can begin to implement these concepts in which we talked about today and is starting by doing additional research, right? It's taking what we learned today and what we've talked about today and going and not just Googling it, right? People like to go to Google University, but pick up a book or two and really dive in a little bit deeper on these concepts, because you want to identify which component or which aspect of project management works best for your organization. For some, it may be the waterfall. For others, it may be agile. For others, it may be something different. And so you don't want to just go with this one. This one sounds cute, I'm going to go with that, because it may not work best for what you're doing. But I want you to really get clear and hone in on project management, because what that will allow you to do is to effectively outsource and delegate your team when that time arrives for you. And so again, I want to just open up the floor for any questions. We're looking at the Facebook as well. We have another team member who's on Facebook. And so what questions do you have? What comments do you have about today's session? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'll speak a little bit about it. So with a lot of people do things with their business that basically is straightforward, like it's going to make me money. So at what point in running your business, from starting it into say 2 years down the line, from your opinion, Naomi, where should they implement having a project management design?
I think from day one, it's good to have a framework and a concept. A lot of places adopt like a software delivery life cycle, which is a process on how they're planning to do their software. That's in an engineering where you're doing software-based stuff, but within a nonprofit or organization doing conferences or helping children or doing volunteer stuff with DV shelters, the wide variety of things that you can be doing, just setting a basic framework of, I want to know this. And it's going to be, what do you want to know? Like when you're doing project management, you can have an idea and run through real quickly and set up a conference and do all the reservations. But what information along the way do I want to know? What information is going to be useful for future projects? And so you start out with a really, really loose framework, and you can add more. Like you don't want to add, and one thing I've seen in some places, you add so much process that people can't have ideas and they can't innovate quickly, which can become its own bottleneck into itself. So when you're first starting, I say keep it really high level. You know, put some basic areas, like I want to have a design phase to my product process. And then from design, I'm going to work on building the plan. And so we're going to be in planning. And then when I get from planning, I'm going to get to make sure that I have some quality checks to make sure this works. And then I'll have surveys I'll develop some surveys for my clients or my customers to see how the feedback loop works. And then you have the launch, and then you go after that and you go, well, let's do a retrospective. And we have the improvement process. And so you're getting that stuff, and it's a really high level framework, and you can add more meat to that process as you're going, as you see stuff works for you or doesn't work for you, but you're building out that basic framework so that you can have a good metrics as you're going on. Because the biggest pitfall I've seen with businesses is you get a couple years in, and I've done audits on companies where there's no data, and I walk in and I go, what do you know about your users? Who are your customers? And you go and you break it down, and they're like, well, I don't know. I think it's mostly guys. And you're like, well, we need to go do some surveys to find out, is it really all guys that are doing bodybuilding, or is it women? What percentage is it, so that you know that you're targeting your customers right and you're meeting their needs, And so you want to start building those frameworks so you're not going back and scratching your head going, I have no idea what I did 6 years ago, let alone 6 months ago. And so you can build upon things, like say you implemented one thing and you decided to stop doing something, you come back to that same idea 2 years later, you have a resource to check, say, well, we did it before and we didn't get great feedback, let's not try that again. So you're trying to be able to troubleshoot, just kind of like you're doing with a computer or something. Hey, is the power on? Is it plugged in? Basic questions that you're going to ask yourself. In any business, you're going to ask the same type of questions, but you do it in the context of what you're doing. So that's a big thing. It's just build that basic framework. It's the basic thing you're going to work on, and then you can add more as you're learning more or going further. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's the difference also with businesses, and that saves them money, because if they don't remember doing this, or if they're marketing to the wrong crowd, or they don't know their audience or their target audience, then if they start marketing to the wrong audience, that's a cost. So, and a lot of people say, if I don't, if it doesn't make me money, I'm not going to do it. But this actually not only makes you money, but saves you money, which is kind of like a great double whammy that you want. So
headache later.
Yeah, you don't want that headache later. You don't want to have to present that information also, because speaking from a bank's perspective, if you take your information to the bank, and let's say you're going, and you're not even going to a major bank, because a lot of nonprofits start with micro lenders or different areas. They could do a deep dive of your situation. They want to look at your character. They want to look at your business model. And if you can't answer specific questions on what they have, then the answer is still going to be no, because you still have to tell a story. And if your story doesn't make sense, and if it's not, that part 1, part 2, part 3, like they look at all of this, and then they ask questions on top of questions that you might not think make sense to it. But from a lending perspective, they want to make sure that whatever you're asking money for, it will present a positive, and it's not there to pay off debt. It's not there to cause more frustration, but it's there to actually do something. So that's really good. If you have a business structure and you already have this model, you're like, here, take a look at what we've done, what we've succeeded in, and what we've failed in, and this is what it is. A bank is more likely to lend to someone who have tried and failed and actually have a receipt of it, opposed to, oh, I have no idea. We're going to try, but I need $100,000. Like, thank you, but no, thank you. We don't like to make bad investments. And that's exactly what you're doing. If you're looking for a loan, you are an investment to the bank, and that has to be a good investment. So having structure within being an investment, having structure and understanding where you need to go and what your goals are is pivotal, I believe, when it comes to lending. And I'm sure to everything else, but I can only speak for the bank, but we look at everything.
I 100% agree with you. I was going to start saying also in the line of what you were saying, something to look at, and there's several of them online, but there's a couple of them within like LinkedIn Learning for Entrepreneur Now that's really great. Is they have a TAM, SAM, and SOM worksheet, which is just your target market, and it's going to work you through defining and segmenting your competition, which gives you a feedback of what is on the market, which helps out with the banking aspect as well as your business visioning, and defining them if they're an indirect or indirect competitor, and what the social media, what you're basically investigating how other people are doing things. But it's really good for business and for ideas, even in project and product management. I do this. on specific ideas because it allows me to understand behaviors and what's working and what's not working on the market. Just as a side note, it is through that one is the worksheet I have is through LinkedIn Learning on the Entrepreneur Now is where I got the workbook from. But it's a really good baseline to check into what you're doing as far as checking the pulse of your ideas too. So just as a framework thing, side note.
Awesome. Thank you both ladies. Yasmin, you are live. How are you, Yasmin?
How are you guys? I just got to know about the boot camp and through LinkedIn and through my network, and that's extremely important, as we all know. And I actually sent an invitation to some of you to my network as well, so we may be collaborate in the future. This is very interesting and very useful. I just want to let you know.
That's our goal.
Yes, I want to introduce myself first. My name is Yasmin Badri. I am the founder and CEO of Microcare Community Development Solution. It is a prospect CDFI, Community Financial Institution. And we work with small businesses to start and expand. We also work with pre-loan technical assistant and post-loan technical assistant for businesses.
Beautiful.
I went myself through the project management certification training. So Naomi, I understand what you're saying and understand where you're coming from. Exactly. But, you know, I noticed that when I was in the training and all the process of preparing for the exam and so on and so forth, all the participants were actually engineers. Mm-hmm. And all the syllabus, the curriculum directed to manufacturing and directed to engineering. Right. I was the only nonprofit advocate in the game.
Wow.
So that actually, just to assure you, what you are doing is on the right track and maybe a pioneer for us to pivot from the, from the manufacturing and for-profit to a nonprofit community-based activities and initiatives, and incorporate the project management mindset into it. Because my knowledge and my understanding, I am doing it in my nonprofit, and I am also doing it as an expert for as I advise other businesses. But also I am seeing it on my peers when they talk about productivity, their project management, and the style and the business model to generate revenue stream and so on and so forth, and productivity. It is a challenge. So this is really good, and I am hopeful that I will follow up with you on the next. This is the second one, isn't it?
This is the fourth, but we have 8 more.
Oh,
so good.
Okay.
Okay. And the replays are available, so I can definitely make sure you get those.
Okay. So that's all what I wanted to say. So nice to meet you guys, and I really interested to follow up and see where that will end and continue collaborating.
Thank you so much, Yasmin, for sharing, and everybody who's joining us. This is exactly why we're doing this, right? Again, we know that there's a need. As a nonprofit founder, as the founder of an LLC, we need this. I needed this, and one of the things that I've learned, just really along my journey, for those of you again who are new to me, I've been on my entrepreneur journey for the last 7 years. So I tried and tested, and I'm in this for the long haul. But there are so many things that I didn't know in the beginning, and it was detrimental to my business. And so my goal again in my company is to really teach and equip people on how to lay a solid foundation in their business the first time around. But then I do it from an interesting perspective, and we focus on the partnership strategy, the power of collaboration, and that's my area of expertise. And then again, on the nonprofit side, I saw a huge gap between generations of women where there wasn't the effective communication. There weren't as healthy of relationships in the business world specifically, and that's where the Woman in Action Conference was birthed. We are great as individuals, but together we can dominate and make so much impact. And so that's really what was birthed from me. But then we have Summer, who's here, who, yes, she's dominating the corporate space as a assistant VP, but then she also has a nonprofit. And then we have Naomi, who's here, and she is a wizard in the project management world, right? But then you also see she has an arm in another company, or two other companies as well. So the point that we're making here is, number one, you don't have to have one stream of income. And I was listening to another segment of the bootcamp series, and the speaker was Coriel. And that was put on by the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals. And the comment was, multiple streams of income is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. So thanks for that gem from Coriel. Go ahead and tag her. But the beautiful, not even beautiful, the essential piece is understanding that, to your point, Yasmin, is absolutely, I am a big avid communicator of establishing a nonprofit arm in what you do. And if you are a nonprofit, establishing a for-profit arm in what you do, not putting yourself in one box. You can show up really with the same mission, which is, again, what I do in both of my companies. My company and my organization is, the mission is very, very similar, but our mode is different, operating as a consultant in one area and then operating as an event creator in the other. And that operating as the event creator is allowing me to partner with corporate companies that, in a way that we can't do through the for-profit, right? And to drive that point all the way home, this is why we're able to be here with you today. Through the nonprofit arm, we've been able to partner with Comerica Bank to bring this entire experience to each and every single one of you. And that is, again, the power of collaboration, the power of pivot, but also it's the vision of being able to show up and deliver what is very near and dear to my heart, is just providing resources, personal and professional development resources, to the founder on the other end of the screen. So we have 2 minutes left. This was great. I know a little bit more than I did before. Naomi, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Summer, you killed it per usual. And, Naomi, if you have any other final points, where can we find you? How can we connect with you further to learn more?
I am on LinkedIn, and her MMA is on Twitter, so it's her_MMA, and that is both a profit and nonprofit. So those are the two main areas you guys can find me, and I have a Facebook presence as well. That's her mixed martial arts. So I'm online on a regular basis. I do check messages, so if people have questions. My final point that I'm making here, I do apologize, kiddos are coming in now. Sorry. My final point here would say, check out LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. They have a lot of resources. Oh, sorry, they've reached their limit. I have 2 boys, so I think they've reached their limit on patience here. I do apologize. Hi.
You're good.
No, we all have kids, so we get it.
We all get it. I just heard something in the background on my end too. So you're totally fine. So again, we just wanted to thank you, Naomi, for joining us for this conversation. Summer, again, you're phenomenal. Before you all head back to your day, I just want to give a reminder. Not only are we bringing these dynamic conversations, if I don't say so for myself, we are also putting on a nonprofit pitch competition. Discover Her Worldwide connected back again with Comerica Bank to put together this nonprofit pitch competition. And so if you go over to the website, discoverher.org /Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp, you will get all of the details around how to enter and what the expectations and terms are for this pitch competition. I will share with you, for those of you who are wanting to be part of the pitch competition, you do have to be a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Your IRS determination letter will be submitted, but you must attend 7 of the 12 workshops with us live on Zoom. And yes, there is still time for those of you who are just joining us here for the first time to still make the 7 of 12. And so again, today is our 4th experience. We have 8 more segments left. And so if you join us for the next one live, you will be able to get in on the great treat of being able to submit for the pitch competition. We have a few people here who are in the running, who have joined us every single week. So shout out to all the veterans of the boot camp. But again, I just really wanted to drive that home, because we not only want to bring this information to you, the professional development resources in order for you to sharpen your skills and your knowledge, but we also want to make sure that you have a resource in us that's also financial. And we know how important it is to grow and develop. And so go ahead and head over again to discoverher.org/Comerica Business Boot Camp, Business Sense Boot Camp, and check out, please, please, please make sure you do this. Check out the official rules, because there's some additional goodies that are in there. Because again, we have a $1,000 cash prize for the pitch, but I may also be giving away some free consultation or some free consulting. So go ahead and check that out. And we look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. We'll be back in about 2 weeks for the next segment, which is all about knowing the story behind your numbers. And we're going to be talking about strategic planning. So get ready. And thank you again so much for joining us. Comerica Bank, thank you so much for all that you're doing for the community. And thank you for joining Discover Her Worldwide as we continue to make impact in the lives of those we're called to serve. All right, everyone. Until next time, be well.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.